Welcome back to another episode of the Night Report podcast. Joining me again, Richie Schneiderate, and we have a very special guest, Rutgers Athletic Director Pat Hobbs. Thanks so much for coming on, Pat.
Great being with you guys.
A lot of Rutgers news to discuss. First off, basketball team made the NCAA tournament 2 times in a row for the first time since 75-76. Talk a little bit about what was that Monday? No, what was Sunday night like in the Rutgers Center, waiting that out?
So Sunday was one of those days that just dragged on and on and on and on. It seemed like it was never going to get to 6:30 or 6 o'clock rather. And as the day moved along, on Saturday we felt really comfortable. Then Sunday you wake up and you go, well, I'm reading this and I'm reading this, so maybe
Richmond
not so
wins.
comfortable. Yeah. And so, Steve came in and we looked at each other and he's like, what do you think? I don't know. He's like, I said, let's hope it's early. And then thankfully it was very early in the program. And so big sigh of relief and just felt great for the kids and great for Steve and the coaching staff.
So Pat, there was also some pretty big news with the program this weekend as well in terms of the extension. How kind of easy it was to just kind of be like, hey, Steve, we need you here. Like, we need you here for another couple more years.
Yeah. I like to sort of be preemptive in those situations, right? I think it's telling the coach, it's the university telling the coach that we don't need to react to somebody else expressing interest in you. You've done a great job and we want to extend you. And so the 2 previous extensions, as you guys know, were 2-year extensions. And I'm a big believer that as sort of the quality of your program, the quality of your results increases, so should the quality of the contract extension that you're offered. And I think we all know by now, Steve Pikiell is our coach. He's going to be our coach for as long as he wants to coach. And so doing an extension where I don't have to come back to it 2 years from now again and do it is pretty good. Although who knows, maybe we will. So that was the reason for the 4 years. We wanted to make it very clear that Rutgers University is committed to Steve Pikiell, and we know he's committed. You heard his comments. I love Rutgers University. I love what we're building here. It's been a long journey. All right? The job that he was handed was probably the most difficult job in the Power 5. And, he had no locker room, no weight room, no practice facility, and anything else that you would need, he didn't have. And so sort of the ability to negatively recruit against us was there. And thankfully, due to the great generosity of Rutgers Nation, we've been able to remedy all of those things so that now it's sort of flipped the other way. And people are like, wow, even recruits will say, I haven't seen this quality of practice facility, the locker rooms, everything else. And so he's our guy, right? Steve's our guy. He shared with me, he has a picture that he shared with me recently of the front of the TikTok diner in New York. And that's where, of course, we sat down and we closed the deal. And we just both thought, wow, we've come a long way, but this was the plan, right? What he did previously at Stony Brook, it was build, and then you have a sustained, successful program. And that's our goal here. It's our goal in basketball. It's our goal in every sport.
Yeah. So, we've all been around long enough to have tasted moments of greatness with Rutgers basketball. Like there'd be 2 or 3 games when I was a student there where that place was rocking. Like I remember there was the Jonathan Mitchell 3-pointer for the win against, I believe, Villanova when I was a senior in college. What about Steve is different from all his predecessors that really pushed Rutgers basketball to a new level?
I have great respect for all of the folks who came before and have tried, especially because, as we just talked about, the things they didn't have, right? I've known Fred Hill a long time, Eddie, all those previous coaches, and it's hard. It's hard to do this job if you don't have a practice facility, if you don't have the things that, thankfully we've been able to give to Steve. So I have great respect for all the predecessors, but I also think Steve's a special coach. He would be winning without those things. It makes it easier for him to win with those things. But there's a Steve Pikiell style of basketball is the way I sort of look at it. And I think we see that, right? So he gets young guys that maybe aren't the most highly recruited, and he is one heck of a guy at developing a player. You know, you look at Geo Baker's career and what he's done. You look at Ron Harper. You look at how these guys, Cliff, you know, the development of Cliff from last year to this year, right? We're starting to see what Paul Mulcahy can do night in, night out. We have the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year in Caleb McConnell. All of those guys came in, and Steve just knows how to develop you. So, like, if there are sort of young men out there who are like, how do I go to a program where they're going to get the very best out of me? And by the time I get up to my junior, senior year, I'll be the best I could possibly be, no matter what program was recruiting me. You know, I went to Rutgers, and Steve and his staff, you know, Brandon, Carl, Steve Hain, what they do to develop these, TJ, a young TJ, it's tremendous. So I think there's a Steve Pikiell style of play. I think it's gritty, right? So we talk about Jersey, right? We have a little bit of a chip on our shoulder, a little bit of lack of respect, right? And so, you know, and he would tell you, that's not that different from what Jim Calhoun inherited when he went to UConn, right? So Steve was Jim Calhoun's first recruit at UConn. They had finished last the year before, and 4 years later, they finished first in the conference. Pretty good record, you know, for Steve as a player there. So there's a style to what he does. He demands 40 minutes of basketball, 40 minutes of defense. I think we've all watched games in the past before Steve got here where that quality of effort and the quality of play was not quite there. So I have respect for all the predecessors, but I do think Steve is a very special coach, and we're very fortunate to have him for many years to come.
Pat, I want to move along a little bit and kind of talk facilities. I know last time we talked, I guess it was probably about a year ago, we were talking about the RAC. You said you were kind of working on a couple renovations here and there. Where are you on that status?
Yeah, so about 2 years ago, we hired AECOM Architects to provide us with what we're calling Facilities Master Plan Phase 2. And we basically took everything that we'd done before. It wasn't according necessarily to a plan, but we called it Phase 1, right? Because you gotta call it something. And so what we wanted to do this time was engage an architectural firm like AECOM, they're sort of world-renowned firm, and say, what is everything else that we need to do to close the gap between us and our counterparts in the Big Ten, from football through basketball down to rowing, volleyball, golf, right? Yeah. And so that is getting close to being finalized. And there's probably 3 priorities at the top of the list, and no coach would argue with these priorities, right? It's a football building and indoor facility for Greg, right? Yeah. That's, so, as we just talked about what Steve didn't have, right? Well, we also have to address what Greg doesn't have, right? And he doesn't have an indoor facility of a quality that we see at other Big Ten campuses. I joke that, our indoor facility is a temporary bubble, right? So the bubble was temporary. It was opened in 1986 as a temporary indoor facility. Well, almost 40 years on, it's still our temporary facility. But it's where we have, I don't know how many teams have to share practice time. And, we've had snowfalls where that thing's collapsed. So that's just not Big Ten quality. So we need an indoor field. We need a new football operations building. We've done some things on the Hale Center to really vastly improve the Hale Center of late. So Greg wants to do it the right way. So while we sort of try to treat most things around here with a sense of urgency, we also want to do things the right way. We did the APC, the RWJ Barnabas Health Athletic Performance Center the right way. The Rodkin Center here was done the right way. The practice fields for football, the Marco Battaglia football practice facility was done the right way. So Greg is patient on that, and I'm probably somewhat maybe less patient. Like I want to go, let's go. So that's a priority. And then we have the fewest premium seat inventory, lowest premium seat inventory in the conference, or certainly in the Power 5. We really effectively have no suites in the stadium, right? We have the Provident Club, which is very good, but that's one facility with 900 premium seats. The rest of the SHI Stadium there really are no premium options. There's no party decks, right? There's no club areas that you can offer a menu of options to your fan base to say, would you like to be a season ticket holder over here and you're part of this club, and here's what that costs. And also with then Jersey Mike's Arena, which we know was probably close to obsolete the day it was opened, right? It's only got half the bathrooms it probably should have. It's the only basketball arena that I've ever been in, I think. This is a true statement. It's the only basketball arena I've ever been in where the concourse does not complete. It's not a 360 concourse, right? It's a U, right? So if you think about it, you can walk down to either one of those ends, but then there's the student section sitting between. So AECOM has done some really interesting work, design work, conceptual design work around both SHI Stadium and Jersey Mike's Arena. And what it shows is it's possible to take those facilities and really upgrade them to significantly enhance the fan experience, but also to provide athletics with a premium seat inventory that we can now generate more revenue, right? Because as you've, I think, heard me say, and I continue to say, and now thankfully we have a new president, Jonathan Holloway, who also sees that, is we really don't have a spending problem. Like when you're in the bottom third of the conference in terms of what you're spending, your issue is not spending, your issue is revenue, right? And so we need to grow our revenue. And it's hard to do that in your facilities if you don't have premium seat options, if you don't have club areas. So really exciting concepts that we're looking forward to at some point sharing publicly. What then next has to happen, right, is you then pressure test that against your fan base, against the corporate community to say, if we put 30 suites into the stadium, would you be interested in signing a 10-year contract, right? And that begins then you start to build your revenue stack so you can go ahead and make those investments. There's no question we're going to need help from the state of New Jersey, right? So, you know, the story, whether it's apocryphal or true about Jersey Mike's Arena, is that when, you know, the then RAC was being built, it was supposed to be one of those circular arenas very popular in the 70s, like State Farm Arena, like Mackey Arena, you know, at Purdue, like Wichita State's Arena. And they're really loud places because of that circular nature. So all of the noise is sort of directed down to the court. So it actually was intentional. That was the original design of what we were supposed to have. And then 1975, 76, economy was struggling, state revenues were struggling, and my understanding is the state cut the allocation in half. So that's how you ended up with the trapezoid of terror, you know, with not enough bathrooms and a concourse that's very crowded. And so when you see what we're hoping to do with this, it's pretty exciting. And it would have a 360 concourse. We'd actually get the students closer to the court, if you can believe that. And we would give our season ticket holders and premium seat folks who would desire a premium seat experience to have that experience, and obviously then pay for it. And the beauty of it is, you know, what we're putting on the floor is a really exciting, you know, product and team to watch with really exciting young men. And that same is going to hold true over at SHI Stadium with Greg and what he's doing, right? And we're already seeing sort of pieces of that, and we know sort of what he's going to do because he did it before. So at that point, shame on us if we're not in a position to take advantage of it. So that's really important. But so those are the top three priorities in there. But you'll see there are concepts for a baseball, softball complex. There's concepts for field hockey, to take field hockey out of the middle of our track, right? Not the best experience. And look what Meredith is doing despite that, right? Now, you know, for some of those programs, we've been able to do other things. Softball has a new locker room. Field hockey has a new locker room. The baseball are in a new set of offices. So we significantly upgraded where Steve and his staff work out of. So we've done things for almost all of our programs, but we need sort of that plan. And then, you know, you sort of have your priorities, but if a donor comes along and says, you know, I'm just really passionate about golf and your golf program, and I want to help you build the envisioned practice facility for your golf programs over near the course, then that goes goes forward pretty quickly as well. And that's sort of how, the Rodkin Center came about, because Gary and Barbara have two passions, right? Gary's very passionate about academics, but he's really passionate about athletics. And Richie, he's a huge Yankees fan, so he'd love your hat today. And then Barbara really is focused on academics. And so when he came and said, is there something that sort of could combine those two interests on our part? And it was like manna from heaven, right? Because we had some academic spaces, but not the quality of academic space that the Rodkin Center has today. And the difference when we do a recruiting event I'm sitting in the Rodkin Center now. When we do a recruiting event in this building, and we go into that big multi-purpose room, and parents just sort of see the commitment to academics. And let's face it, there's very few people who come onto this campus who are thinking about their child's professional career in that sport. Most of them are thinking 98, 99% of them are thinking about their child's future as a profession, in a profession and some sort of career. So this is a sort of statement place. So if somebody like, Gary and Barbara come along and they want to do something else and they have a passion, and I want to be able to say, have I got a project for you, right? And that's
Sure.
what the facilities master plan does.
So Pat, we've both been around Rutgers long enough to have seen so many plans that have been announced by Rutgers, different mock-ups and designs. But it seems like it hasn't been until recently that there's been like a commitment to actually getting shovels in the ground. Because that was always the thing. It was like, well, I'll believe it when there's a shovel in the ground. What's the secret sauce, would you say, of fundraising? Because Rutgers has struggled with fundraising for a while. One of your first initiatives was the Rutgers Big Ten Build Plan, which raised $100 million in like the first few years of your tenure. That probably helped a lot with the Rodkin Center and other facilities, the wrestling room upgrades and things like that. And we've all seen a tangible on the field result-based change from each team that has been given a new facility, it seems. So what's the secret sauce in terms of actually getting the money, cutting through the bureaucracy, and actually getting things built on Rutgers campus?
Well, thank you for that question. So what I've always said, I've been asking for money from people for 30 years. I was a law school dean, as somebody at Seton Hall for those years. And we had a very successful fundraising campaign there. What I've always said is there's got to be 1,000 reasons not to give, right? So somebody say, well, I don't like this. I don't like what this professor said. I don't this. I don't this. I hear Rutgers say, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to be the right quality. We're not going to win. It's not going to make a difference. So there's 1,000 reasons not to give. To me, there's one reason why you give, and that's you have passion. You have passion for Rutgers. You have passion for Rutgers basketball. You have passion for wrestling, football, whatever it happens is. You have to have a passion because there's a lot of different types of philanthropy and charitable giving, right? Some you do because people are hurting, whether it's a hurricane relief fund or something like that. Athletic fundraising is because the return you want is success. You want to have the win on Saturday. You want to have the win regardless of what the sport is. So that first building, the RWJ Barnabas Health Athletic Performance Center, to me was like everything. Everything. This was it had to do many things. One, to your point, it had to show we actually can get it done. It's not just another rendering. We're going to actually put shovels in the ground. We're going to build this thing. And what kicked that off, and I give credit to former Senator Ray Lesniak, Senator Tom Kaine, and to Governor Christie, because there was a $25 million tax credit bill that had been sitting down there in Trenton, unsigned. And when I became athletic director, it was myself, but it was others as well, reached out to Governor Christie and said, for us to have success, we need to go. And this gives us our go on the Big Ten bill. If you sign this, then $25 million of tax credits. The clock is ticking on using those tax credits, right? So now I can create a sense of urgency. And so I still think it was the only bill of this nature that he signed. And so credit to him for doing that. And so now we have $25 million of tax credits, and Sarah Baumgartner and I sat down, and she's like, what's our goal? And I said, and there was a feasibility study which said that the most Rutgers could raise in athletics was about $30 million. And I said, well, all right, 25 and 30, don't build a building. So you do these feasibility studies, and we just came out, I said 100 million. We're going to raise $100 million. This is our goal. And so boom, the Big Ten bill goes out. And so, passion, right? Find people who are passionate about what you're doing. They have to trust your vision, right? So it's on me then to articulate, here's what we want to do as a department. And they have to have confidence, right? In what I've heard this before, no, we got it. So one of the things I did early on, and people responded, which was great. I'd say, listen, I want to get to know you really well in the years ahead, but I need your help now. So, it's a little bit of a reverse of what you typically do in fundraising, right? Where, over time they say, yeah, I believe this guy, let's do this. We don't have time. We don't have time. We got to go. Can you help us now? And, people did, the Garudis, the Towers, and Dan Wheeler. I mean, I could just go on and on, right? Greg and Anna Brown, what they've done. It's just incredible that they all stepped up and said, yeah, we're going to do this. This is our moment. We're going to build this. And then I said to the architects, Perkins Eastman, I said, this building has to be wow. Right? When people walk in, I don't want them saying we did it halfway. I don't want them saying anything other than, holy crow, they did this at Rutgers, right? And yep. I remember to talk to your sort of the skeptic, the cynics that, we know. I don't know if it's Jersey, I don't know if it's Rutgers, but it's probably a combination of all those. We're at the Garden for the Big Ten tournament, and a guy comes up to me and he says, that building will never get built. Well, the steel was already up, right? The steel was already up. So I said, have you been to the campus recently? I was like, no. I said, well, the steel's already up. So we're either going to have a shell sitting there or this building's going to get done. And
it's going to be an interesting piece of modern art or
exactly sitting next to the very interesting business school. Right. So, so we got it done. That was a critically important project because it told everybody at Rutgers, we can do this, right? We can get together collectively and build. The next piece of that's so important, and this is where, Steve Pikiell, Vivian Stringer, Scotty Goodale, Umi Salim Beasley, who are the 4 coaches who have their programs in that building. But it's not just them, right? Because that's where our healthcare facilities are, so all our athletes can get treated over there. But those programs, and men's basketball obviously is a critically important program where hire the right coach, give that coach the resources they need to put together a great staff, and then invest in the resources that they need, provide them with the things they need, whether it's a new locker room, a new strength and conditioning area. Bob and Harry Druskin built that beautiful strength and conditioning room over in Jersey Mike's Arena. That was a nice piece while we were getting this the practice facility done. And now people are seeing, right, but for COVID, this would be our 3rd NCAA tournament in a row. That doesn't just happen. It needs great leadership in the program. You need to attract, kids need to be able to come to a facility. And I'll tell you a quick story. So one of my sort of favorite moments that you get to enjoy as an athletic director is when you bring a team into their new facility for the first time. So when men's
seen some of those videos, that look fun.
Oh, it's the best part of the job, right? Is you and all of those generous people who've helped you build something. You now get to see the eyes of these kids walking in. And I'll tell you sort of 2 quick stories on that one. So women's basketball, they come in and I said to them, ladies, this is your building 24/7. They're like, what do you mean 24/7? I said, you have your swipe card. You swipe in, you want to come in here and shoot hoops at 2:00 in the morning, this is your building. So that night, a group of them, I don't know if they didn't believe me or they just wanted to see, was it actually true, came in at like 2:00 in the morning and they were playing some pickup game. And I saw them the next day and they're like, Mr. Hobbs, we got in the building last night. We were playing. And then the other one, which I loved, was when the gymnasts came in. They went from a practice facility that they would have to set up and tear down and everything over at the Livingston Rec Center. Mm-hmm. And to, you can ask Coach, Celine Beasley, she ranks our practice facility in gymnastics now in the top 5 in the country, right?
That's awesome.
So the young ladies come in and they literally had tears in their eyes. And that's when Umi told me for the first time, I had not known this, that they would change into, whether for practice or for competition, they would change into their leotards in the public restroom over at the rec center. Jeez. So you think about that. You are a Big Ten program and your kids are changing. There's no locker room. So they were really excited to see all the practice equipment, but they were crying when they saw that they each had lockers in that facility. And so that's so meaningful. And the same sort of thing happened here in the Rodkin Center when you bring those kids in. So yeah, I think we are finally past the cynicism of that will never get done, right? And it just makes it easier for the next facility to get built when you say, look at what we did with all of these programs and look at the success that they're now having. And, that's why, the football building will be a really important effort. And I know Rutgers Nation will step up to that, to the tall order there, but we'll get it done. Mm-hmm.
So now, Pat, kind of piggybacking off the fundraising thing, the Big Ten's obviously rumored to sign this crazy, massive TV deal that's out of this world. Just how much of an impact has the Big Ten made on Rutgers, and how easy is it with fundraising now?
Well, first of all, I hope all the people who've been writing about this are right. I'm a little more cautious on that. What I will tell you is we have a great deal we have great partners in Fox and ESPN and CBS, and so as we work through this, what's really important, yes, if we can sort of take the next leap up financially, that would be wonderful. Mm-hmm. But it's really important to have great TV partners, great platforms, right? To be, there's a lot of effort now with some of the over the top stuff, whether it's ESPN Plus or Peacock or Paramount, to take things to pay-per-view is the way I sort of look at it, right? And I'm not sure that's, I think you can have some of that, but I think being on Fox, being on ESPN, being on CBS on Saturday on linear television is really important, and maybe so important that as you think about the deals that you're going to do, we all want more money. There's no question about it. We'll all put it to good use, but we also need to protect the brand that is the Big Ten, so. The Big Ten means something financially for Rutgers. There's no question about it, right? The quality of the media rights deal in the Big Ten is a multiple of 10 times better than what we saw in the Big East or AAC, and so that's important. But it's the Big Ten brand, right? So when you recruit a kid and you go, you're going to play football against Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Iowa, Purdue, Nebraska, Wisconsin. I mean, you just go down the list. You just name every one of them, right? There's not one of them in there where the kid's not going to be excited about playing those iconic institutions. And so from a sports standpoint, it says every Saturday you're playing football against one of the iconic brands. Almost all of them have had national championships, gone to Rose Bowls, and that's who you're playing in these great venues with great tradition, great game day tradition. And so, I think the football team that started it all in 1869 should be in the Big Ten, right? And so that helps recruit. We've got tremendous football talent here in New Jersey, but, obviously Greg and staff recruit around the country. That helps you recruit. Kids want to come in and test themselves against the best. And that's across then, all of our programs. You look at the 20 game conference schedule that Steve just went through and Vivian, the women's basketball team just went through. I mean, there's no nights off. There's no nights off in the Big Ten. You look at what Penn State has been able to do in basketball. And so that's hugely important. And then it also, maybe this is the wrong word to use, but I also think that it helps validate the quality of the academic institution that we are, right? So we've all known Rutgers is a great university, probably underappreciated here in New Jersey by the number of people who go out and attend school elsewhere. Rutgers it's not a good university. Rutgers is a great university. And it probably still doesn't have the reputation that it deserves. And that's an important piece of what we can contribute as an athletic department, is to highlight the great academics here. But, now we are, as an academic institution, we sit alongside Michigan, Ohio State, Wisconsin, all of these great academic institutions. So, I don't think you can overstate the significance of being in the Big Ten. And that's why, like, the naysayers, and they're disappearing very quickly these days, right? Rutgers doesn't belong in the Big Ten. They missed the point on the academic side, but they also didn't understand that we can. That's why I came here. I came, I was at Seton Hall for 25 years. We did some great things in basketball at Seton Hall. My first hire there was Tommy Amaker, and he had a real nice run before going on to Michigan. And then I was able to hire Kevin Willard, who's, I guess he's 12 years there now. I forget 7 NCAA tournament appearances. I always wondered, why can't Rutgers get it together, right? Why, you'd have Greg's success, obviously, in the 2000s, but then every other team was sort of, not performing, right? Mm-hmm. So what I believed is that because of its Big Ten membership, with the right investment, and you got to have a little bit of ego to do these jobs, right? You have to think people will respond to my urgency about getting things done. Why can't we be great? When during the interview process, somebody said, we just want the embarrassment to stop. And I said, well, okay, first of all, we have 700 student athletes age 18 to 22. They're going to embarrass you, right? What we're going to try to do is make the embarrassments smaller embarrassments, because I got 3 kids and I remember those years, and they did things, thankfully, didn't end up at NJ.com or any of these other things. But the goal is try to, again, recruit kids who, will they make mistakes? We're going to make mistakes. Let's not make big mistakes. And I said, but let's be clear here. I'm coming here to win. I want to win, and I want to win in checkers, chess, you name it. I want to win in everything. And that's where an important part of the conversation was, will you commit to paying coaches fairly, to providing the resources, because we can win? And I'm very proud of that. I think my first full year here, I think we ranked 116th or 117th in the Learfield Cup rankings, which is, it's a ranking of the overall athletic department. And at the end of our fall, and because of the success of all those programs, particularly field hockey and women's soccer, we sat at 28th in the country. Now, I don't know where we'll finish up at the end of this year, but I would bet, well, no, you can't bet. I'm an AD, NCAA violation. But I would be curious to see, one, where we finish up this year, and has any program in the Power Five moved as many spots in as short a time? And I would say I think that's probably unlikely.
I'd agree. I want to talk a little bit about institutional sport. Rutgers, as you kind of alluded to, has kind of not really been all in on athletics until somewhat recently, whether that be, infighting, or there just wasn't a philosophical, like, Rutgers athletics is an integral part of the Rutgers community and the Rutgers experience. Now, President Holloway recently spoke about kind of philosophically changing how we view athletics at Rutgers, from basically looking at it as a profit machine to it's an essential part of the Rutgers community and a tool to sell to school. Rutgers, the New Jersey Governor is a regular attendee at basketball games and different sporting events. How important are both of those levels of support, both from the state government level and also the Rutgers administration level, where it's clear now that it is a full 100% support of Rutgers athletics?
Incredibly important to have alignment both with your president, your board, your administration. And I think we have a lot of alignment with our faculty is really important. and then also alignment on the state side. Let me talk about Rutgers first. I think we're incredibly fortunate to have Dr. Holloway as our president. He lived the life of a student athlete at Stanford University. So, and he understood the opportunity that afforded him to then go on and become a very successful academic, right? He has a brother who played in the NFL. So he knows that there is a path for folks in football and basketball to go on to sort some professional career. But for the vast majority, it's, can you take advantage of that opportunity to get an education and then go on and make something of yourself? And clearly he more than did that, right? And he's president of Rutgers University. He and I very early on talked about, I said to him, listen, my background is sort of unique, right? So most people before I came to Rutgers knew me as a law school dean who sort of, from a part-time basis, oversaw athletics at Seton Hall a couple of times. And so I understand the life of a faculty member. I had to publish to get tenure, to get my promotion, right? To work and do research, to try to go in and be a very good, high quality teacher, right? So, tenure is based on teaching, scholarship, and service. So very important to be a good teacher, very important to do your scholarship, which brings credit to the institution. And then you have service component to the institution. There's a variety of ways that you do that. So I lived that life for a good number of years before becoming dean of Seton Hall Law School. So anytime I have an opportunity to talk to faculty, I think they listen because they know that I did what they do, right? And so I want to see the faculty here at the university get the resources they need to be successful. And I think we can play a role in that. I mean, it's taking time, but given where we were as an athletic department, this was not going to be just, turn it over overnight and all of a sudden everybody's going to see, oh, that's what athletics can do for a university. But we have a president now in Jonathan Holloway who sees that, understands that, the old metaphor that athletics is the front porch of the university. So it's not the most important room in a university, right? But if your front porch is inviting and folks want to sort of get on that porch and come in and find out what the rest of the institution looks like, they're going to see that this is a really, really high quality institution. And if we're doing it right, we will inspire giving, not just to athletics, but giving across the university, because we won't be that excuse, right? I mean, I talked about the 1,000 reasons not to give. Oh, well, I'd love to give to the engineering program, but athletics is embarrassing me, right? It's an embarrassment. If we take that away, people are excited. And not just the people that are passionate, but the people who, they just have a Rutgers degree on their wall. And, they come into the water cooler on Monday and say, did you see Rutgers this weekend? We took on and we won. And that's transformative. It's folks, there's lots of folks who wish that wasn't the reality, but that is sort of the reality. So, and as Dr. Holloway pointed out, we're less than 2% of the university's budget. But it's even sort of less than that. If you think about the amount of our budget that is university support, it's less than 1/4% of the university's budget. Now, it doesn't make it insignificant, right? When you're talking millions of dollars, it's millions of dollars. But, one of the things I also always mention is, we're not full scholarship across all of our sports. Less than half of our students receive some form of scholarship. The other half are paying full tuition, room and board, and that's about $17 million. And that's sort of, because of the way we account for athletics, that's not seen as a contribution back. So there's actually financial contribution back, and then there's reputational contribution back. And so, I'm very, very appreciative of Dr. Holloway's comments to the university about our value. I'll tell you, it was a real shot in the arm for my administration and the folks who work in athletics who, many of them work 7 days a week. And so to sort of be constantly cast as an anchor on an institution rather than on something that can buoy an institution is disheartening for people. So it was really, really important. Then we go over to the state and to Governor Murphy, and I would, again, credit Governor Christie, as I talked about earlier, in terms of his belief in what we can be. we're the flagship university for the state of New Jersey. To be playing, in an NCAA tournament. Look at just in the last couple of days, the focus on Rutgers, but even, Seton Hall and St. Peter's made the tournament as well, right? So it brings you Jersey pride. But we're the state. We're the flagship institution of the state of New Jersey. Governor Murphy has great pride. Does like to come to the basketball games, football games, and we're going to need their help. As I said, we're trying to do things now. In putting together our facilities master plan. And we demonstrated not just to the Rutgers faithful whose contributions we need down the road, but also to the state of New Jersey that if you invest in us, there's a dividend to the entire state as well. And that's part of our strategic vision, is that we want to be a shared source of pride for not just Rutgers Nation, but for all the people in New Jersey. Because as folks who grew up in Ohio who don't necessarily go to Ohio State, watch Ohio State football on a Saturday, right? And they'll wear Ohio State gear, regardless of where they went to school, because they have pride in their state institution. Mm-hmm. And we have people in New Jersey that have that pride. I think it can be much bigger, so that the young man or woman who attends a football game or basketball game turns to mom and dad and says, I want to go to Rutgers. And then we've done what we've needed to do.
So Pat, I got an intriguing one for you a little bit. You might have to think a little bit for this one. So LSU announced a partnership recently with a gambling company. Obviously, New Jersey is one of those states that allows sports betting, sports gambling. Is there anything like that in the works at all? Or is that just something completely off the table? Or is it like?
So I think you have to be really careful about that. And it's not just LSU. I think Michigan State struck a deal. There are a number of universities that are taking sponsorship dollars in their multimedia rights from sports books, right? So there's sort of where you inch along, right? So, and we've been, I think, very careful and very thoughtful about we have to first and foremost protect the reputation of Rutgers University, right? So who your advertisers are, it becomes really important. We began alcohol sales in the stadium some years ago. I think we lost a year obviously with COVID. And why did we do that? We moved forward with that because we were able to demonstrate to Rutgers University and the board that by introducing alcohol sales at our venues, you actually end up with a safer environment. And that's been true across the country, that you have less binge drinking before a game, the pass out where people go out at halftime and binge again and then binge after. And we did a lot of research to make sure that if we introduce beer and alcohol sales, yes, it's great, it can produce more revenue for the institution, but is it a safer environment? Is it an environment we can protect? And the answer to that was yes. And so now there's no reason why we wouldn't take sponsorship dollars from Miller Coors or Dos Equis or some of the relationships that we now have. So that was careful, measured, and we did it the right way. One of our sponsors, very proud of, because he's a Rutgers grad who started the company, is Jackpocket. For the lotteries, it allows you to sort of buy lottery tickets online. And a really important part of that consideration was all of the lotteries that they allow you to play through their app benefit education in the states so New Jersey is a part of it. So you can buy a lottery ticket with the New Jersey State Lottery. We know that what the state makes on those sales benefits education here in the state of New Jersey. But also importantly, because it's an app, they're able to monitor, does this user maybe have an issue with their gambling? And so, which you can't do when somebody walks in with cash to a 7-Eleven or whatever that happens to be. So now you again inch along, right? And it's something we do not currently have a relationship with casinos. We don't have a relationship with a sports book. We're going to continue to monitor what happens. My fear is that, and this can happen anytime, regardless of who your sponsors are, right? But at some point, we're going to have that scandal, right? And none of us want that to be a Rutgers scandal, where, you know, you get a group of kids that lose their mind and say, hey, they're betting on us. We can influence this, right? And we've had those issues in the past, right? In the 50s, you get terrible issues with NYU, and there's a bunch of schools. And it wasn't because of the relationship the university had with a sports book, but, you know, and there's a lot of dollars being thrown around right now by all those, because, and the reason for that is, and I'll turn it to music, right? So some folks like Spotify, some folks like Pandora, right? They advertised massively when they first came online, because once you are a Spotify user, you're a Spotify user. Once you're a Pandora user, you're a Pandora user, right? And that's why all of these sports books are advertising like crazy right now, is because they want you to use their app and capture you as a lifelong user of their app. So I get it. At some point, those dollars will start to come down again. But I think you got to be really, really careful about what you're saying when you decide to take those dollars. And I'm not being critical of LSU or Michigan State, or we're just not ready yet. And that's a decision that obviously Dr. Holloway would make with probably the input of the board. And so we're just not there yet.
Gotcha. So Pat, you gonna make it out to the game on Wednesday?
Going out there tomorrow. Wouldn't miss it. Wouldn't miss it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare travel situation for the team, though, playing at 9 p.m. And if Lord willing we win, we'll play again on Friday at 4 p.m. in San Diego, which beautiful place, but long travel and short turnaround.
Reminds me of the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, you know?
Yeah, it does.
But yeah, no, it's exciting. And obviously, like, Notre Dame's a really, really good team. They've got some great talent. They finished second in the conference in the ACC. And, people say ACC is not where it was years ago. It's a really good conference. And Notre Dame is incredibly well coached by Mike Bray. Been there a long time, been to a lot of NCAA tournaments. And so I think it's going to be an exciting game.
Richie, you got anything else?
Pat, this is kind of an interesting one, and I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about this one. You mentioned a women's basketball team before. C. Vivian Stringer, what's the status there? Yeah,
so Hall of Famer, right? Coach Stringer. She's a Hall of Famer both on the court and off the court, in my view. An incredible woman, and she's on leave, and so folks have sort of been asking about that. What I can say is, everything about her leave is in accordance with university policy. We have to wait as a department, right? So all of that is handled through the HR office of the university. We have to wait as a department. I credit Tim Eatman and the staff for doing the best that they can in this situation. It's challenging. There's no question about it. But we have to wait, sort of for Coach Stringer to tell us when she's ready to come back. I know if you saw, there was a recent little video. TIAA is doing these things about women in sports and in other venues sort of not making what men are making. And she did a video saying, I'm not done coaching, I'm not done teaching.
Yeah.
She's an incredible woman. And so I hope it all sort of resolves itself in a way. And, we'd love to have her back in coaching. And, so we just have to wait for Coach Stringer.
Appreciate it.
Pat, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything you want to talk about before we sign off?
A timeline for football facility?
I'm sorry?
I said a timeline for the football facility, maybe a
I don't have a timeline yet. We're still working on, so I'll tell you where we are with the football facility. Is we're still working on design concepts, right? So we have to get something that works, right? That works for the university, that we think will be within a budget that makes sense, where that our donors can respond to. And that's what one of the things I think Greg would say is what I love about the Rutgers University that I've returned to is they're doing things the right way, right? The facilities that they've built were done the right way. I don't want to rush this and not do it the right way. So let's get the right design in. Let's get the right cost estimate, where, the right location for it all. And so I want that to happen because he needs it. But we want to do it the right way. The only thing I would say, since you're giving me the opportunity to do it, is I just want to thank everybody that works in Rutgers Athletics. I mean, we just went through a pandemic, and not everyone fully appreciates the burden that placed on our medical staff, our trainers, our strength coaches. For a while, our strength coaches had to mail people or email people workouts, right, to do in their garages and everything. We were testing people every day. When sports came back, some of them were in the wrong season. So the facilities staff were working round the clock. Our videographers working around the clock. The people from our, the maintenance folks, right, when having to clean buildings more often and clean them in a different way. From the maintenance worker to my senior associate athletic directors across what they've done in the last couple of years is extraordinary. So it's an opportunity for me to say thank you to them, and to say to anybody who's listening to this, when you see any of these people, to say thank you to them and recognize their contribution, right? We watch our teams on the fields and on the courts, and we appreciate what they're doing, but that doesn't just happen. It's the team behind the team that does that. And so I'm really proud of them. I'm proud of where we are, proud of where we're going. I always say that we are in the process of writing the greatest chapter in Rutgers athletics history. And I think it'd be hard to argue with that right now. So
ESPN 30 for 30, the return of
Someday,
Rutgers, the return of Rutgers.
It's a great story. It's
I totally agree.
Story. I think they should wait. Greg in his press conference said his goal is to win a national championship. What I've always said is I want to go to a Rose Bowl. I'm glad that that's the goal. But I'd love to win a national championship in the Rose Bowl, which would be great. But if you've ever been out to that iconic venue, there are these great bronze plaques that go back to when the first Rose Bowl, and I want Rutgers' name on one of those plaques. It's not on any of those plaques. So Steve has 3 shelves in his office. One now is filled because it was getting back to the NCAA tournament. The next one is for Final Four, and the next one after that is a national championship. So I want all of my coaches to want to win national championships. And look, women's soccer was right there this year. Women's field hockey was right there this year. I think when you see what Steve Owen and Kristen Butler are going to do in baseball and softball, people are going to be very, very impressed. So I'd wait a little bit before the 30. Maybe it's the greatest success story in the history of college athletics. That's certainly what we're all working toward every day.
Yeah, it's almost surreal, because back when I was a student, there was like one program you could point to and be like, yeah, we're top 20 in this, but now, we're ranked in half of our programs at Rutgers. It's really, really, really a great time to be a Rutgers sports fan.
It's fun. It's fun. There's still hard days, but it's fun.
Yeah, it's getting easier.
Yeah.
Pat, we thank you so much for coming on. You've been great. A lot of these stories people are going to love to hear. We'd love to have you back on again in the future. But this has been another edition of the Night Report podcast. Signing off.
Anytime. Thanks, guys.